Well, welcome everybody to Council Checkup. I'm your host, Don Walmsley, and with me is our mayor, Blake McCutcheon. Good day to you, Blake. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome. I'm glad to be back here again.
Yeah, Happy New Year, I guess, because this is the
yeah,
first
that's right.
one of the
No,
new
we've
year.
had one since then.
So your councillors must be out and about, because often we have guests alongside, but it's a solo flight today.
That's correct. Well, you know what? We've tried to stay as well as we can under the code red, right? So,
of course,
so
that
and I
makes
think,
sense.
and I guess that's something we could talk about. I think.
And we are well over 6 feet apart, just for those of you who may be wondering.
Yeah, and I think we're all optimistic now with what Dr. Roussin said yesterday, that we're going to ease our way back into society on Saturday. Yeah, so I think maybe on a go-forward basis that we will be able to put another counselor or another administration or somebody in the room on a go-forward basis. But
Good.
yeah.
It's always exciting to have those folk come in, their perspective and the information they share and that kind of thing. So, since our last one in September, you've had a couple of council meetings. Anything sort of fresh to come from there?
You know what? We're kind of in January, so you know what? It actually has been slower. I mean, being in code red has slowed stuff down too, of course. We're actually at budget stage right now. There's a lot of discussions going on with budget and money, and we're still waiting on a provincial government on a few ISIP grants and stuff like that, whether they might occur. So that's been our focus right now. Otherwise, I guess, the grant applications are moving forward. Like we extended them from every other year now.
These are the town grants,
yes,
right?
the town grants that we give out, whether it be to the Yellowhead or Arts Forward or lots of, we have lots on the go there. And normally they have to have their applications in by the end of December, but because of where we are with COVID, we extended it to the end of January. So, you know what, I would like to just mention that and say that, we are getting applications from people we've never got applications from before. So, obviously, this is a different year with COVID, and people are under financial stress, some of our agents, our organizations. So, you know what, this is the time. If you feel like you really need help and you're not going to survive, you still have another 10, 11 days here to get your application in.
So that's interesting. So you've had applications from groups you've not seen before.
Right, yes.
And I'm sure some of the ones you have seen, they're very dependent.
Yeah.
So have you had any sort of
submissions
or presentations?
Yeah, actually at our council meeting last night, we actually had Ron Nordstrom there from Arts Forward. He always does such a professional job of putting forward his grant application. And it's interesting. As they said, they struggled. It was they never saw it coming. I think a lot of the grant applications we're seeing is that they have managed in lots of respects this year. They've kind of weathered the storm, but they realize there's another year in front of them. Because, this isn't going away anytime soon. So, Arts Forward's not going to reboot, and the Yellowhead's not going to reboot. And
right back to where it was. There's a recovery period.
So I think that's the one they're concerned about. And I think they're worried that because they're not really underwater yet, they think that we're going to go, well, you guys are fine. And I think the position they're putting forward is, we're okay here, but we still need your support. Because, you know what, we think this is going to be this year is going to be a tough year.
It's going to be an interesting year for sure, because I've heard speculations from different camps that because we've been so confined and restricted, people are just going to be enthusiastic going forward. And then I've heard the others say, well, people have retooled, maybe thinking about how they vacation next year, maybe not going. And I think that it's a hard call. We're not going to know until there's some stability around the COVID situation.
Correct.
And we look at going forward.
And that's really based on vaccine, right? And
it's about the herd immunity, isn't it? And the vaccine will help that. Plus, the truth be known, our partners to the south, they have a lot of work to do before we can reestablish the kind of international trading kind of thing. Yeah. We have Britain that's just finished Brexit.
Yeah, no, I know.
And new trading partners all over. The world is retooling, and I say recovery year. I think it will be recovery years as we do things.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I think it's still positive. I think it's optimistic.
It was interesting when we were sitting at the table last night listening to Ron talk, and I did comment on that. We forget, and we don't forget, but we need to acknowledge it more, that the work that these volunteer boards put in. I mean, this presentation that Ron brought forward, and I mean, it was pretty outstanding. And you know what, the passion that he brings to that, you know, it's you know what, we gotta say thank you more often to our volunteer boards, right? Because
that's a very good point, because we do have things. So many things now operate on volunteer boards, whether it's the bird sanctuary or it's Forward. There's tons
Margaret
of
Lawrence,
here.
the museum, the baseball diamonds.
That's right.
It's just never ending.
Those people behind the scenes deserve a heck of a lot of credit to keep things going. Because if we lose it, then people will say, "Oh, why isn't that there?
Yeah.
How did that go?"
Yeah.
So, well done, people. Just off topic,
Yeah.
to all those people who work on volunteer boards, thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with
You
that.
do good work, you work hard, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, so it's very much appreciated. Anything else new?
In the town, you know, snow clearing is going underway. I mean,
Well, there hasn't been a lot of it lately.
no, that's right, but they've been doing cleanup now, getting ready. I mean, we
Yeah.
know this, live in Manitoba, there's always going to be another snowstorm at some point, so they've been working on that. You know, the skating rinks have been, they still are toying with the idea of maybe a third skating rink. They're not sure where yet.
Because we have two now, right?
Well, no, we only have the one down in the flats, and,
Yep.
and then there is the one up at the north end, but that's more private individuals up there that
that got together and
yeah.
did that.
The town is looking maybe at one more, and of course we got the Croco Curl that's underway, but I mean it's still in early stages. It's just being framed out, so that's going to take some time. So
See, I'm going back, and we may have discussed that in a previous session, but years ago, there was huge on Park Lake, when we had Park Lake.
oh, okay,
I remember, I think Ivan Trail was very involved in
yeah, I
this,
think that's true.
in doing a curling on the lake.
Yes,
These huge
Yeah.
rock sliding it down. But the same for that would be an ideal place to put another skating rink.
yeah, and maybe in the future when
Yeah.
we actually have water back in
Yeah.
the lake, that would be a
And
yeah.
from the last conversation we had, you think that there's promise in that?
I think I think we've been given pretty positive feedback that there is money coming and that there is a fix that's going to occur. I don't think we know exactly what it is yet, but
Well, and I remember further conversations referred to it not just simply as a piece of water, but it helps in that whole flow of
Correct.
water system
Yeah,
to
yeah.
act as a bit of a hole before releasing in,
Yeah.
and then possibility maybe even expanding.
yeah,
Which would
no,
be
that's exactly
pretty
right.
exciting.
No, it is exciting. I mean, yeah, like I said, we're a growing town, and
Yeah.
I mean every piece of the puzzle that we can add is great.
See a huge skating rink on a
Oh,
lake.
yeah,
They
that's
can
right.
do all sorts of things.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And going ahead with the in increasing our reservoir of water to 2 days.
Yeah. In you talk about our new reservoir that we're talking about.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I said before I came into the room I was going to be a little late today because we had an AMM Zoom conference, and what that is the Association for Manitoba. It's all the municipalities. I think there's 120 some, and actually we're very fortunate to have Murray Parrott sit on that board. And Rick Blight from Portage is the president this year, so he's very knowledgeable of this area. And they actually, normally we'd see them in our room. They would actually come into our room in vans and they'd sit and talk. But of course, with COVID, that's not happening. So we did a Zoom today. So they give the town of Neepawa just an hour. So they just want to hear what we have to say and what's going on, and they do that with all the municipalities. And then what they find out is a common theme, right? What's the common theme here? What are you guys all talking about? So we just spent an hour with them, and you know, it gave us a chance just to kind of go back over us too when we're talking, and you know, we forget, you know, and they said that too, right? That you know, they know how much we're growing here in Neepawa and how progressive we are, but they forget too, right? Because you know, we're the exception, right? I mean, we're very fortunate to be one of those towns that aren't shrinking and aren't looking to hang on to the services they got because they're losing population and tax base. We're at the other end, right?
That's true. Yes, we do tend to not keep that in perspective.
Yes.
Because you're quite right. We've benefited from the population growth here.
Absolutely.
We just finished the waste treatment
Yep,
project.
yep.
I don't think I've ever seen Denis quite as excited when he was here talking about
I
how
know,
it works.
I know. It's amazing
and
what
what it's done.
I know.
And provided for an increased capability going forward. Now you're talking about the increasing the reservoir.
And that's what I said at this, and I got to speak first on this Zoom, and that's what I said. And it just isn't this council; it's the last council, and we've been lucky to have the continuity of the same administration between the two of them. But along the way, this town embraced the idea that whether it was our idea completely or not, High Life is engaged with us. They have become a big entity in our organization here in the town, and we have to accept the fact that we are going to become a hub. So you know what, whether it was something we wanted, it's something that's occurring, and we have to embrace it. So the last council started extremely well. I mean, they put in place the lagoon. As you say, we're getting the reservoir now. That actually gives us the capability now to become city status without adding any more money now, right? And a city's really 15,000 people now, so I mean, that's a long ways away. But I mean, it still gives us the ability to grow and not have to worry about spending more money. Well, a little bit to expand our lagoons, but not much. So I mean, that's really important. I think the fire hall, I didn't really understand that when I first came on council. I mean, it was a big ask. It ended up being around $3 million. But again, it was built on a hub mentality. So it can take an F4, I think, tornado, and so. But it was also built on the idea that eventually other municipalities, and maybe not now, maybe not in 10 years, but eventually other municipalities may defer to this as their fire department. As some of the municipalities start to slip away with their older equipment and older firemen. So
it would be a thing like they would be sort of spokes on the hub.
Yes,
they'd be subunits of the main thing.
Yeah, and we do that. We do that with Langford now, right? Langford actually pays us to be their fire department.
Well, and we're looking at situations like we know that they haven't finished the education reform. COVID hit before they could roll that out. That still has yet to finish.
Yep.
And also we know there's a shared health reform coming in, and the implications are, we don't know what those are going to be.
You know what, and that was brought up at the Zoom meeting, and you know what, we understand that. That's a very complicated issue, as is the education. But as our CEO put forward, Colleen, she said when it comes to the shared health, and I mean Murray sits on that board too, is that we need a heads up. Like, you know what, like, we're worried that they're just going to show up and go, we've got this great plan for you, and by the way, if you go with the old rules, we need 10% cash input before we're going to. Well, you know what? That doesn't work in the world we live in right now, especially with Neepawa, because we're stretched so thin. Pouring money into all our expansions that we need for the size of our town. So that was, and I mean the AMM, they understood that too. They said, yes, we have lobbied the government to give a heads up to communities, right? They need to understand there is a potential that we are looking at you. You might have to do this, but right now we don't know what's going on, and that's not the way to operate, right? So
no, it isn't. I'm just going to take a minute. I realized I hadn't turned my phone off, and that's most disconcerting when something happens during this. And I beg your
that's no
indulgence.
But you know what? I think that's what a lot of that conversation was at the Zoom, was the fact that the town understands its role now as a hub. And I mean, we even talked about the RCMP, right? I mean, we've always talked about,
yes, we've talked about
is it what's going on with our building? And you know what? Again, that's been an ongoing conversation, but again, we haven't been given any strong direction from the province. So you know what? We brought that up again today too, saying, you know what? If we are being viewed as a hub, if we are being viewed with the potential to maybe have a new hospital, or whether we're going to get expanded services someplace else, whether it be in education, these are the things we need to know, right? So, and they agreed with that too, right? And we talked about water treatment operators too. I mean, that's always been a big issue, and I was surprised how, Colleen and Denis have been very engaged in that, and I was surprised how the AMM, they said that is a huge issue throughout the province of Manitoba, and I think that was an interesting discussion, though, really, because they were saying at the education level, no one ever promotes you to be work for a municipality. Like, no one ever comes to the career days and says, you know what, you should be a water treatment operator. You should be a CEO. I mean, you should be.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, you should be head of a operations manager. You know what? That never comes to the table, right? And as Denise says, when we're looking for new employees, we don't see the people in their 20s and 30s. It's more the people in the 40s to the 60s, right, that are more interested in. So, and because I don't think it's viewed as a job that people view as a career. And again, the AMM understood that. And I mean, especially when it comes to the water treatment operators, because I mean, in our particular case, because we're such a big area now, we need a class 3. Well, you know what, in the rules that they have now, it can take up to 7 years to become a class 3. So, I mean,
that's a big investment of time.
That's a huge investment. And obviously, because we're a small town, most small towns don't have to be a class 3. They only have to be a class 1 or a class 2. But because we're a class 3, that means we're competing with people that could live in Winnipeg, live in Dauphin, live in Portage, live in Brandon. So, you know, it's difficult for us to attract those type of people. And I mean, we've been very fortunate right now with the operator we have. But again, as the AMM said, that is a problem, and they have continued to bring it to the table of the province, and yet there hasn't been any outcome.
So why is that going to the province? Is there not a regulated profession or trade organization that could go to instead?
Not really. Like, the water is under the Public Utility Board, right? So, but no, when it comes to actually, I mean, there's nothing at Red River, there's nothing at the university level. I mean, there are courses you take, but I mean, that's all instigated by the town themselves, right, and the municipalities.
So where do those courses come from if there's nothing?
Well, in the old, before the COVID, I mean, you would get in your car and you would drive to Winnipeg to take, you would do your, you do your studying out here, and then you drive in for a couple days and you'd take your test, and then you'd get your results. Now it's being done by Zoom. But yeah, no, it's a big issue. I mean, I don't know if you remember years and years ago in Ontario, the name of the town slips my mind now, but they had that issue.
Oh, with the contamination.
Yes, and someone went to jail over that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what you have to have. So that's really important. So, I mean, we talked about that, and I mean, it was a general discussion. I mean, RCMP funding, that's something that still concerns us. I wasn't aware of that, and I don't think most people are aware of that RCMP funding is only towns and I think and up to people and towns over 500 people. We're the only ones that contribute to the RCMP funding. So the rest of the money comes from the provincial government. I understand that, and the federal government. But when it comes to here, right now, and again, I'm not trying to say it's wrong, because everybody's following the rules of the law. But let's just take us, for example. So around us, we got Langford, we got Glenelg, Lansdowne, and we got Rosedale. So they are not, by law, which is their right, don't have to contribute $1 to RCMP funding. But obviously, they benefit from having RCMP in our town. And I mean, again, that's something the AMM understands. And actually, they have engaged, I didn't even realize that till they told me today, Myers Norris Penny has actually been doing a big study on that. And they said they're very close to an outcome. So I think that is something the provincial government's moving forward on. So, I mean, that was positive to hear that.
And I hear what you're saying. Nobody's done anything wrong.
Nope.
This is what the letter of the law is now, but going forward, especially as some of the municipalities are seeing increased population.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are moving out into the municipalities and working, as we see that here as we grow bigger and the jobs are there. Not everybody is living within town.
No, that's right. And, and I did say positive too. I was very, I wanted them to go back to the government and tell them, we really like the fact that, and they didn't see it from the perspective we were talking from. Like, our government has now decided to take the education tax off property tax, and they're rolling out a 10-year plan, and we're in year 1 this year, and eventually it won't be in property tax, it'll be tucked back into your income tax. And I said, that's really been a benefit for towns like Neepawa, because it's a perception, right? And it's, people have always been a little unhappy that they see, because of our immigration and so many people that we have here, that they don't feel there's been an equitable amount of money being spent on education tax from the homes that we're operating, right? And it was interesting because the AMM said, well, we hadn't thought of it from that perspective, but what they hear mainly is from the farmers, right? Because the big big successful. The big farmers, because their land values have gone up to $6,000 and $9,000, they are paying a huge amount of education tax. So that it was interesting. They said they hadn't really thought of it from the other side too, right? That in the towns where we have, and nobody's fault. I mean, if we had 45 houses for people to live in, I'm pretty sure they'd be living in them. So so that was interesting too. So but what I enjoy about meetings like that is it gives us a feeling of where we are in the queue when it comes to how we're viewed in the province, and these are people that deal with governments every day, and they talk to lots of municipalities, and they say Neepawa is always on people's minds. Like we're not hidden at all. We are well known in the government for being a town that's growing and getting bigger and is looking, and we're also very progressive in our grants and on our asks and our requests, and they say we're fair-minded, right? We're not coming up and saying we need this, right? It's our right to have that. We're being fair-minded, but also that's always nice to hear too, right? And it's nice to hear people at the other end of that room saying, we're hoping this council will, stay and be around for a while because we like working with you, right? So that's always an important thing to hear, right?
Well, and it is from any perspective, because it suggests that things are sort of going well. It sounds to me like this
AMM, Association of Manitoba.
It allows you, when you're talking, it gives you perspective. It gives you a sense of where you're at in that whole scheme of thing and what's happening around you. Because we have heard, and I think we've actually talked on this program, that there are other towns that are really struggling in their water supply.
Yep.
They haven't done anything, and now they're in desperate need.
Yep.
I think Morden.
Yeah, Morden is one of them. Yeah.
Very challenging, and they're getting newcomers come in too as well, which increases the population size.
Yeah.
So anything else out of the AMM?
No, I don't know. Like I said there, it's unfortunate we couldn't meet in person. I mean, obviously when you can meet in person, you can have more of a back and forth. It's always difficult on Zoom, which you know that too, right? That Zoom is not the perfect vehicle. I mean, it's better than a phone call, but it's still a difficult vehicle to operate with. No, I think they said that they feel like they're being listened to. They Rick Blight, who now represents them. He says I think the Conservative government or any government, I think they view them as the body that they're going to listen to, because I mean they represent all the municipalities. So when they bring a constant, like the RCMP one is the one they hear a constant theme on about what we need to fix, how that funding works. They hear a constant theme on water treatment operators. That's one they hear on. So I think those are the things that are going to actually be looked at really seriously by the provincial government. And I think maybe somewhere down the road that there will be a fix for that. So that's important that we have that we have those people. And I told them that today. I said, you know what? That's how I ended up my conversation by saying, I've sat on boards, but I've never sat on an elected board before. And I said, it's given me a whole new appreciation for people who take on roles of elected officials. And I said, I really thank them for being there and doing that, because some of these guys have been there for a lot of years. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting position to be in. Whether there's a big difference between being a volunteer board and being on an elected board. So yeah.
Yes, I imagine. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else? In terms of one of the things I have here, and it's on the website, on the town website. It was the year in review, and it sort of talks about what happened. What were some of the major things? It talks about the flood, the Canada Day we won't forget. It talks about COVID. And then it talks about the recreation and economic development of the things we enjoy. It talks about the grand opening of the High Life Back 40 multi-use trail park, recreation programs under COVID, the swimming lessons and how many, the tile project, and they're still waiting to be unveiled when permitted, right?
Right, that's correct.
And then grants, storefront improvement. It talked about public works. I like the fact you call it the meat and potatoes of the town. This is what keeps things going.
Yeah.
But 450 meters of storm sewer, 1,250 meters of water, 660 of sewer, 10 residential water renewals, the Christmas lights, the Riverbend campground, 32 new fire pits, the cemetery, of course, the park's mowing cleanup, summer jobs, And then it talks about behind the scenes, things that are going on. So it's just a nice little thing. And you know what? I think that's a nice snapshot. So people say, so what happened? And you say, well, these are the kinds of things that happened. Talking back to the flood, I mean, it was just an amazing community effort from all aspects.
No, I agree completely. Yeah.
It was a truly enriching thing to be part of, I think, from anybody's perspective. So please check it out and read it in more detail.
Like when you said behind the scenes, that just made me think, Don, that, you know what, I think that's something that we don't talk enough about is, you know, we always have on the front of us, you know, our garbage collection or the cleaning of our streets or repairing our streets or those type of items that, which is absolutely correct. People are interested in that. But what I didn't see and what I didn't know until I came on council is the behind the scenes part, right? So now you have behind the scenes. You have administration and council engaging to find money for the goons and to lobby for our ability to build a new reservoir. And you know what, again, today at the Zoom, we were talking about hydro and gas, right? It's been a big issue, and again, that is one that is really going to be on the provincial government's radar.
So what about hydro and gas?
Well, we're having we've been struggling to get them to come to our projects, right? So our CN property, for example, and they gave us timelines, and then they said, well, no, sorry, we're tied up on this one, we're tied up on that one. They have been here, they've left. And I mean, it's a huge issue because, I mean, it doesn't matter. We have water and sewer there now, but if we don't have hydro and gas, I mean, obviously nothing's occurring. And on this Zoom meeting with AMM, they said again that is one of the, like the water operators and like the RCMP funding, that is something they're hearing from all municipalities. They're struggling to get to get the hydro to come to their. And I think there's a multitude of reasons for that. I think COVID's part of it, but I think it's also the government made a decision to roll back some of their jobs, and I think that's shortened some of their expertise there. So, I mean, that's a big issue. And I mean, in the town of Neepawa, I mean, yes, we have just completed our CN project and we're getting to roll it out in terms of housing and selling the lots. But I mean, we have really serious private people now looking at developments too. And I mean, it's early stages, we can't talk about it, but I mean, they're going to run into smack into exactly the same problems we are. So I mean, you know, if it's unfortunate that if you're planning a project and you have to be thinking, okay, I got to get this figured out because they're not going to show up for 2 years. So you know what I mean. This is a huge problem. So that's something else that we.
So again, is that well, it is run by the government.
Yes, hydro is run by the government. Yeah.
And I don't think privatization necessarily
No.
is the answer for that. I think they just better run it better.
Yeah, and I mean, and just so you understand that, it's not our hydro here in Neepawa that would actually do these projects.
No, it's a different.
Yeah, it's a different crew.
Right,
Yeah, it's an absolutely different component.
And does that. Yeah, I'm not. No, it's nothing to do with our local folks.
No, they do a great job.
Yeah.
So you know and again, the RCMP funding that I talked about. I mean, those are the things that are occurring behind the scenes, right? And I mean, you don't see that, but there's all these moving parts and all these things that have to happen. And a lot of other projects can't go through until we have a good understanding from our provincial and federal governments of whether they're going to help us out with money. So you know that's you know when it's difficult, right? Because you know you sit at the table, and I mean when we came in 3 years ago, I mean we talked about the flats and we talked about the streets and and communication and things like that. But you know what? Now that that we've been sitting at the table, we understand it's a very complicated process, right? And it's not like it's not going to happen. I think every year that goes by, I think we are getting much more comfortable with understanding how the budget works and how the money flows. And I think you're going to see some pretty exciting things happen over here in the next couple of years, and I think you're going to see some of it in our new budget, but we can't. It hasn't been finalized yet. But when it comes onto the table and people have a chance to look at it and review it, I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I think.
So that begs the question, because as we see more growth happening in rural Manitoba, because it is slowly. I mean, we've experienced an exponential growth surge, but that means that other municipalities, there'd be more competition for the dollars that are out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And again, that's where it goes to really have a good working relationship with governments, right? Mm-hmm. And with departments, and not just ministers, but sometimes if you get to even know the deputy ministers or people inside the administrations of some of these departments, right? Because it's no different than the town of Neepawa, right? I mean, councils come and go, but the administrations are probably there for anywhere from 10 to 20 years, right? In terms of, so those are really the people that have the power to move things along, right? So yeah, that's important. And I think that I don't think we've continued it, but we didn't start it. I mean, the past administration or the current administration, which has been around for a while, has done an extremely good job of engaging with everybody that we need to talk to when it comes to money and grants.
By administration, you're talking about your town CEO.
Yeah, I'm talking about Colleen
Checkup
and Jody and Marilyn Crew at EDO and Denis and absolutely. Yeah, no, we're very lucky.
When you're looking at this year and you're saying you're starting to look at budget, what are you thinking you would like to see happen in the upcoming year?
Well, I mean, again, as the town grows, we are going to always have to have in the back of our mind a surprise, right? Maybe there's a project coming we're not even aware of yet. Maybe someone's going to show up. It could be a business. It could be it could be a small someone that wants employees and maybe they're going to need water. They're going to need sewer. We have developers that are looking at areas that would need water, would need sewer. So we kind of have to keep that in the back of our mind. But you know what? And as Denis, as our manager of operations, said last night, that's a really tough choice, right? Because if you're holding money back because you think you might have to build that water line, you might have to build that sewer line, but then it never happens. Yeah. Right. Well, then you know what? People go, well, wait a minute now. Why didn't you? If you had some money floating around, why didn't you fix that street? Why didn't you do this? So that's. So I think we're starting to understand that better, and I think we're starting to realize that we have to get these people to commit to a timeline, and if they're not going to commit to a timeline, then we're going to say, sorry, we're taking that money and we're moving it to another spot. Yeah. And if you show up, then you might just be on the back burner for a little bit, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because we kind of struggled with that at the CN property, that we weren't quite sure what was happening there, and we're still not quite sure what's happening there. So, but I think that was a good learning curve for us to realize that we have to do what we think is best for the community.
And that makes good sense.
Yeah.
So, any more plans for the flats?
You know what? Again, that's on. Yeah. Again, that was at the table last night, and I think over the next little bit here, whether it's this year or next year, like I said, I can't talk too much about it, but I mean, we know. I mean, we understand that a pickleball court, a basketball court, a tennis court down there would be extremely popular and extremely worthwhile endeavor. Yeah. So I think it's something we are looking towards. I mean, we're looking at our pool too. I mean, our pool has been a great part of our community, but I mean, our community's also grown by 2,500 people. Yeah. So we're looking there too, right? At what we could do there to expand that. So and of course our streets. I mean, that's something. I
think that's an ongoing problem for any community in rural Manitoba. Yeah. Simply because it's Manitoba weather. Extremes, frost boils, the whole thing.
And unfortunately, and I know that the automatic answer from a lot of people is, well, there's no point fixing that street because the infrastructure under it, whether it be the sewer line, the water line, it's wrecked. So why are you going there and spending a couple $100,000 to fix that, or to make that street look pretty? But I think the council's now moved to the position that we're going to look at streets that we're probably not going to get to for 15 or 20 years anyhow, to do the infrastructure on them. So let's spend $1 million if that's what it takes to start fixing some of these streets. So I think we've come to a good understanding of that. So I think those are the three things that, and we've always known that. I mean, when we came on council, we knew that. We knew the streets, we knew the flats, we knew the pool, right? Like I said, the one thing I always tell people was I didn't have a good understanding of housing. I guess, I always knew that housing was an issue in this town. I think, what was I told the other day? There's 7 houses for sale in Neepawa. I mean.
I know, and that's not the first time.
No.
It's a very tight market.
Yeah, so we have to accept that. Yeah. And we couldn't, when the CN property started, I mean, it's mind-boggling that got underway in 2009. And here we are in 2021, and this year houses will be built on it. But I mean, it was an 11-year process, a 12-year process. So it is amazing.
Well, and the thing with housing, what people are starting to look at is, okay, where can I move outside of Neepawa?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah.
To look at, okay, I'll commute and work here. We've seen that happen with Gladstone.
Yep.
We've seeing that happen in places like Eden and Arden and Minnedosa, so it's benefiting other communities.
Yeah.
Many would have stayed had there been housing available, but
yeah.
Housing is a big thing here.
And you know what? Now that we are becoming on people's radar, I think what you're going to see, and whether it's this year or next year or the year after, you're going to see developers come, and we're not going to have to be the grunt work of it, right? They're going to come, and we're going to bring the water and sewer to their property, and then they will do the rest. They'll be like like a lot of like most subdivisions, whether you're in Winnipeg or Brandon, they do the water, they do the sewer, they engage with hydro, they engage with gas. So I mean, that'll be really good for the town in the sense that we won't have to commit so much of our manpower and so much of our effort. But we had to do it with the CN, and I mean, at the end of the day, it was a very worthwhile project because it goes to show that the town. I think you're going to see that CN property fill up really quick. I think it's going to be dictated by how many trades they can get there, especially in the COVID year, right? Yeah. I don't think there's going to be any lack of people wanting to build. I think that there's been a pent-up demand here.
Trades will be a challenge because trades are busy now.
Trades are busy now.
And you just talk to them, and they're just got so much work.
Yeah. And we've had nothing to offer people. I mean, we've had that little bit on Eastview. There was a few fill-ins at Hillcrest. But, I mean, this is our first real 46 units is something that people can really get their teeth into. So I think you'll see it. I don't know if
you see another, even a project of 12 homes or 15 or those take up time too. And we may see more of the trades sort of come into being, more companies, because the work's there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people still looking around, and I mean, nothing's written in stone yet, and it's always just tire kicking, but I think I've mentioned it before, the home hardware, the old home hardware property, the old Murray property, Murray Motors property there, those people are still looking at those, and those are for our apartment blocks, of course. So, I mean, again, those are important factors, right? We need that for our newcomers when they come, and for even the people my age to move into as they leave their houses. So,
speaking of which, are you have any idea where we're at in terms of the new Kinsman?
You know what? I get the impression. I mean, I don't know if you noticed or not. In the paper, they have an ad for an executive director. Yeah. So that's that's going to be a big piece there when they get that person put into place. My guesstimate would be this fall, but. That's kind of what they always said when they started. It was probably a year. So no, I don't know. I guess, Don. No, I could be wrong when I say that.
Lots of interest in it. Are you aware?
I think I often wondered about that. That was an interesting project. I wasn't sure, but I like I said, I've learned so much. And what I didn't understand was that it not only it's an interesting age group that moves into it. Normally you're older. You're probably at least 80. And you sweep a big area. You're not just talking Neepawa. No. I mean, you're probably talking a 50-mile radius. I mean, you might even pull people out of Brandon because it's going to be less money than what Brandon's charging. So, I think there'll be. I think there will be I think it won't be an issue. I think it will fill personally. Good. Well, what that does to our community, that'd be interesting, right? Does that mean you're pulling people out of the Elks? Are you pulling people out of Aspen Lee? Are you pulling people out of houses? I don't know. I mean, pulling people out of houses would be a good idea, right? Because
it puts them on the market.
Yeah, I remember when Kinsman was done in the 80s and when the Elks was done in the 90s, because I was still in business. I mean, that was a huge opportunity because people were leaving their houses, right? So.
We have Manitoba Housing here, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Have you heard anything about that? Because I've heard that there's sort of a bit of an initiative within Manitoba Housing to sell off their public housing. Have they done any of that here?
Not in Neepawa. Well, they did. The one right across the street from me, it was Manitoba Housing down on Walker. That was Manitoba Housing, and that sold last year. It was on the market for quite a while. I mean, we do have Manitoba Housing in other parts of towns, and they have not come for sale. I know there are some in rural areas like Kelwood and areas like that the government has stepped in and put them up for sale. So I don't know that, Don. You're right though. They are, and I don't know how they decide. Like, why does the house at my end of town go up for sale? Why does a house I don't know how that works.
Well, okay, because it does affect a certain segment of the
Oh,
population.
absolutely. Yeah, no,
and
for
takes
sure.
it off of that public housing availability.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. No.
If there'd be any discussion.
I mean,
in that
that's,
regard.
I mean, we had the Osborne units, right? And I mean, that was a very important component of our community here, right? It has 18 units there. And I mean, fortunately, I was part of that on the Touchwood board, but they made a decision to step in, and they did it not just for themselves, but also for the community, right? Because, I mean, if that had gone private, which I think it would have, that would have put a lot of people on the street that, would have had a tough time finding any place to rent for what they charged there.
Yeah, that was done back in the 60s, I believe, wasn't it?
Yep. Actually, late 50s, early 60s.
Early 60s. Yeah. I think it was one, if not the first in Canada.
Okay, I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
To be put in place, I believe, via the United Church.
Yeah, it was United Church. Like Earl Murray has his name on one of them. The money that
way back.
That money did some of it. It did flow back into the United Church.
It's interesting to see it take a different kind of step.
Yeah,
but not go away entirely with regards to make affordable housing for people.
Yep.
So you're not seeing anything. Okay. I'm going to bring this up. I
Sure.
bring it up almost every
go ahead,
single
go
time.
for it. Okay.
Okay. Our gasifier.
Okay. Well, I just came off not a Zoom call, just a phone call, but that was on Monday and the Monday before. So, it sounds like Groundhog's Day here, but I mean, we are just chugging along, and we are at the stage now, though, where we have to get the government engaged to make sure the emissions are now, because it's such a brand new technology, right? It's not something that hasn't. I don't know if there's even one in Western Canada. So
this is that innovative. That's
yes.
This different to what our typical landscape is here.
So that's why we need now the emission testing. So now you almost have to create a role for someone to say what are going to be the rules, right? So that's going to take time too. So you know what? I think.
Talk to me a bit about why that would happen here. Why not in Calgary? Why not in Moose Jaw? Why not?
Well, I think it's like our $12 million lagoon. I mean, that was technology too that came from Europe, right? I mean, that was.
Was that us reaching out?
Yeah, that's us reaching out. That's us looking for.
Okay.
You know what? We got to go back to our councils and our administrations that they went. You know what? Do we want to have all? I mean, it was going to take a huge footprint to continue on with the lagoon system we had, right? Because you have to have all these ponds. Well, in this new world, we just need one pond now, right? Yeah. So I mean, it saves a ton of land. And
I like Denise's answer. Well, if you expand, throw in more discs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not quite really? That simple, but it is. But he's right. It is. So so that's important. And I give credit to the Evergreen Board for making a decision here to say, you know what. I mean, we just opened up another quadrant there to put garbage in, and it was $1 million to get it ready to go, right? So I mean,
wow.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't realize how expensive this is, right?
So in that regard, the gasifier would eliminate.
Yes. Now, I mean, don't forget, we are, and I guess and like I said, I'm still learning, but this gasifier it could be built bigger, it could be built smaller. This is just kind of a prototype. If it works like the way we believe it could work, it could be responsible for 3% of our garbage. So, it's not like it's going to be 25% or 50%. But I mean, now that once you had a working model and you knew it worked, then you could, I don't know whether you could increase the size of it or whether, but build a new one that's bigger and better.
For there to become responsible for disposing of a larger percentage.
And it's mobile. It doesn't have to be sitting where it is at Evergreen. It could be sitting anywhere.
You can actually bring it to the edge of town and throw stuff in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there'd be some bylaw rules, but in general, I mean, if you came with some type of not municipal, but if you were some type of operation that was creating a lot of garbage, right? You could actually have one of those parked in your facility, right? And it could, it could
wow,
be,
that's pretty interesting.
So it is interesting, but you're right. I've only been sitting on this board for 3 years, in my third year. I mean, you talk to people that have been right from the very beginning, which I think goes back 6 years now. I mean, they're pretty frustrated too, right?
Yeah.
Because they keep,
keep getting that weight. We've got to jump through this hoop.
I know. So people just go, you know what? Everybody just puts those quotations around it. This is what we believe. This is what we think. This is what we're hoping. So, yeah.
You're getting ready for budget. Anything we should be seeing in the way of looking at taxes, tax changes?
Too early yet. No, yeah, I don't disagree with you. You're right. That hasn't even come to the table yet. Right now, we're just looking at the wish list of what that we would like and what we think the community would be interested in, and then once we get those numbers put to our table, I was just told last night at the table that City of Brandon are putting in a 3.5% increase. So I guess that's just I don't know why that came to the table, but I guess that was just pointing out that there are other municipalities that have made a decision to move forward
with a tax increase.
Yeah. So
did you have a tax increase last year?
No, not really. No, what we did was was an assessment year, so houses on average throughout our area were assessed at a 3% raise. Some people got a 5% assessment raise. Some people got a decrease. So we made a decision last year because it was COVID to cover up that 3%. So in essence, we not only did we not raise our taxes, we actually probably decreased them a little bit, right? Because, well, no, I guess we didn't decrease them. But I mean, normally, if we had just let that go through, it wouldn't even have been us raising the taxes. It would have been the assessment raising the taxes. Everybody would have paid 3% more on average. So we made a decision to hold that. But you're right, we have had this discussion before, and you're right. That's a slippery slope when look at the city of Winnipeg. They went through.
Well, after 10 years, suddenly they had to do a major increase.
Yeah, that's right.
To catch up.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Everything costs more. Your milk costs more.
Yep.
Your cost of food.
Yeah.
That's part of what happens as we grow and demands increase.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have to get back into the game of doing something here. I mean, I think it'll be reasonable, and I don't think it'll be shocking. But yeah, no, you're right. But last year we did hold the line, and I think it was the right decision with COVID. So I'm glad we did that.
At your AMM meetings,
yep.
This may be a big stretch. Was there any talk about vaccinations, the implications in small centers?
No, that didn't come up at all, and I don't think that has been a discussion. I think that's kind of
they've left that to the purview.
Yeah, I think they left that to the provincial and to the health agencies, right? Yeah, I think Okay. I know it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, right?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things. Anything going forward? We've talked a little bit about the flats, what you'd like to do, but are you already deciding on your street programs in terms of what
we definitely have a wish list, but until we sit down, and that's actually one of our major meetings occurs next Tuesday with finance, and that's when they will be starting to go through it and saying, this is what we think realistically we can afford. But yeah, no, absolutely, that's something that interests us. I know. I think sometimes these things become self-fulfilling. I really believe that. I mean, the last 4 years, the council before us, because of the lagoon and lots of other stuff going on, they weren't able to just throw much money at streets. And we're in our third year now. And I think if in a perfect world we'd say, we still got lots of other priorities. But I think sometimes you have to bite the bullet. You just have to say the time has come, right? We just
because streets are going to be an ongoing issue. It doesn't matter how many you fix now.
Yeah.
There'll be others come up.
Yeah, I think
trying to get to those ones that have been sitting there. We all know the certain spots in town saying, when are they going to fix this street?
And Denis has looked at those, and that's what we said at the table last night. If you don't start, you can't finish, right? So we need to start. And I think, like I said, this is becoming a self-fulfilling end game. So I think you'll see something. Yep.
Well, that's good.
And just going back to your vaccines, I was told this morning that Country Meadows is underway with vaccinations.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. We've been extremely fortunate.
Yeah, no, we have.
Yeah. A few of us have been. Some haven't. Look at poor McCreary.
I know. And they say it's bad. Yeah.
It was and other, especially in a smaller.
I know.
It's bad anywhere.
It's bad anywhere.
But when you're in a very small community, almost everybody knows everybody.
I know.
In some fashion or another, it sort of hits viscerally, I think, a little bit more than perhaps in a broader, where it's very much family oriented, as opposed to really community.
Yeah, no, I didn't even realize Country Meadows was on the list, but that's what I was told this morning.
I'd heard that they were. It didn't matter if you got it or not; you were going to be on the list. Eventually, it was going to happen.
Yeah, so I'm
very
glad
pleased to see that.
Me too. I'm really happy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know what, I think we just have to, I mean, we talk about it at the table, you and I have talked about it. I mean, we just have to accept the fact the first 6 months of this year are going to be pretty what we've had, right? I mean, even if we go back to Code Orange and, you know, get a few more things going on, and hopefully someday, you know, fitness centers and arenas maybe, and you know, restaurants. I mean, these are tricky, slippery slopes, eh? So, but I think we just, I think the problem now is because the vaccine's there, people just have this want to get back
safe,
to, we want to get back to normal, right?
And given all the information I've heard, and if people have heard to the contrary, okay.
Yeah.
Typically, it's a result of larger gatherings.
Yes.
Somebody in contact then spreads it
Yeah.
to family members or other locals, you know.
Yeah.
Because the lockdown is having an impact. The poor North escaped it for so long, then when it got in, it's been battered pretty hard.
Yeah.
That having to weather through and dealing with that until it gets control there.
Yeah.
But the numbers really are moving down. But there's always, as you said, it's a slippery slope. Going out for coffee.
I know.
Meet friends, or just, you know, if you're a family, you can't do that.
I know.
God bless the restaurants that have kept going, and the takeout, and the people who have supported the local restaurants.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But it's and other places like the hairdressers, the gym.
Yeah, I know.
We'll know for a fact, but he certainly hinted, Dr. Roussin, that going to recommend that we remove that essential item list.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I'm
25% capacity. I think that's
if they really focused on controlling capacity, then anything's fair game for buying.
Well, they're also looking at not spending any length of time with anybody, right? I mean, if you're in a store walking through, you know what, you may say hi to somebody and visit for a minute, but it's not like where you're sitting and you're not sitting in an area where maybe you might be for 40 or 50 minutes, right? And that's always, as you say, a family gathering, and that's always been the problem, right? So they've learned lots, and I mean 10 years from now, if we're still around, we're gonna go back and go, oh, we could have done that so much better, right? But I mean,
well, and it's such a hodgepodge across the world. You look at places like South Korea, which have it in control, Australia, New Zealand, but because of their demographic and because of their geography,
absolutely,
have been able to and their history, have been able to address it quickly. Then you look at countries like Britain. A lot of the European countries, except certain countries that did major lockdown, the United States, really challenging, because if you don't cramp down right, clearly we've learned, if you don't lock it down and keep it locked down for a while to control it, it gets out of control very quickly.
No, I agree. And I mean, it's always been about protecting the vulnerable, right, and our hospitals. And I mean, I understand that there's that other side that really believes that we've been way too strict, and I understand that. I mean, you can make an argument on both sides of this. But I mean, at the end of the day, the governments were between a rock and a hard place, right?
It's not an easy call. No. This is where governments have to step up to the plate. And the fiasco we had at Christmas time with MLAs and MPs and CEOs of health organizations flitting off to some other countries during Christmas, not a very good example to set.
No, I agree.
To the rest of us who, when there were people who couldn't even engage with go and see their dying partner in a care home because of the COVID regulations. I mean, I think that irked the public a tremendous
Oh, it did.
amount.
No, that's right. No, I agree. People were very upset about that, right? Because a lot of people had shut down their family gatherings, had told their daughter not to come home, or their sons to come home, or, you stay where you are. And I think a lot of people were very offended by that. Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate. But you know what? We've talked about this before. I mean, we're a pretty amazing society that we can roll out a vaccine in less than a year, right? I mean, this is...
Well, initial, lots of experts at the beginning were saying it's going to take at least 2 years.
I know, I agree.
But there was a lot of government funding from a variety of governments around the world to support research to get things done. A lot of these research had a lot of money thrown at them to be able to to do the things they needed to do, and it wasn't because they didn't have the money to do it.
No, I agree.
And they came through.
Yeah, no,
and found a new kind of approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
it's pretty spectacular. So we're very fortunate that way. I mean, in the Spanish flu 100 years ago, they just had to wait for herd immunity, right? I mean, and so, no, we're very lucky.
And we've already seen a mutation of the COVID-19 virus.
Yep.
And the expectation that we're going to see more.
Oh, absolutely.
And so going into lockdowns and wearing masks and things may become more of what happens periodically.
I think, I think even on just the fact that they've talked about there's been 0 flu cases this year really in Canada, right? I think people have really come to a better understanding now, how masks work and how washing your hands work. And
that simple hygiene.
I know.
Simple hygiene
I know.
Has been our predecessors who would say, wash your hands.
I know. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I think on a go-forward basis, I really believe if you're sitting in a room at a meeting and you have a cold, I think you're going to see people put their masks on. I think they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to spread it to you. I'm going to do the best I can. And yes, it's just the sniffles, and but I'm still going to. Yeah, I think we're going to adopt more of that mentality from other countries.
Well, there are other parts of the world that happens quite frequently.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see that here too. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going to happen on planes and trains and buses, but yeah.
It's certainly because within 2 months it'll have been a year.
I know.
It'll have been a
Friday,
year.
March the 13th is when we locked down, yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
I know.
Yeah, definitely a year to remember.
I know.
I think this year is not, anybody who thinks it's going to be like an elastic band and snap right back, the band is stretched. Yeah. It's not going to be quite the same. I
mean, like we've been very fortunate in Neepawa. I mean, I understand there are businesses that have been impacted, but in general, we've been very fortunate. Mm-hmm. High Life's done an extremely good job of maintaining their workforce.
We've mentioned that before, and it's worth mentioning again.
Yeah.
They have been extremely diligent so that we haven't had that major, like happened in Brooks.
Yeah.
And places like that.
Oh, absolutely.
It was just devastating at the time.
But, I did say that on my Zoom conference today when I was talking to the MM, just going back to that, saying, I was pretty impressed that even though we were in COVID for this whole almost a year, as you say now, there was still a lot of stuff happening in the town of Neepawa, and you just read it off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't stop us from doing a lot of this stuff. I mean, obviously the rules were changed and how some of this sort of rolled out, but yeah, I mean, it was still, it's nice to see that the society still adjusted, right? I mean,
well, that's how we've grown to where we have, is because we're adaptable.
Yep.
And we can change and change to meet the needs.
Absolutely. I agree. Yep.
So I think we're coming to the end of our session.
Right.
It's been a sort of a bit of a rambling one. It's the early
Always
years.
Is.
But thank you for your time.
No.
And look forward to seeing you again in a month and seeing where we're at there. Another month goes by.
Another month, the budget will be on the table by then, and there'll be lots of other things that we can talk about. So.
Excellent. And maybe we'll have another person in the seat.
Yeah, and I'm
ready to go.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
So thank you all very much for tuning in to Council Checkup. I've been talking with our Mayor, Blake McCutcheon, sort of a catch-up now that we're in our another calendar year. Good heavens. We're all one more week of January left. I cannot believe it. I'm still thinking about Christmas and all the wonderful food and the lack of contact that we had. But I hope you all are well. Continue to stay safe. Continue to remember that COVID is still out there. Be mindful of others and be kind to yourselves. This is a tough time. It's been a tough time for many people in all walks of life, not just simply because of maybe food security, but also just in terms of mental well-being, how we feel about ourselves. We are social animals. We like to be out and about and in contact with family and friends, and that's been severely compromised this past year. So please stay well. Spring is coming. Winter's, well, we still have yet to feel some of the winter, but it's not that much of it. So until next time, for me, Don Walmsley, have a great day, and thank you for tuning in.